There once was a time when getting through airport security was quick and easy.
Before 9/11, you used to be able to go through airport screening to meet friends or family coming in. There was no checking of ID or anything.
X-ray machines were still by and large black and white images. The FAA's performance standards for screeners were almost non-existent.
After the attacks on 9/11, the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, was created, and security screenings became much more thorough.
Back before 9/11, there was no such thing as a screening line.
Today, the process entails getting out your boarding pass and ID. Most people have to take off their shoes, put them back on, and remove laptops, liquids, belts, and jackets. If you set off the machine or are randomly selected, pat-downs can add to wait times.
Bottlenecks are a really big problem at airports generally. I mean, travel demand, except for the pandemic when we took a huge pause globally, has been growing, and airports don't grow every year.
Despite enhancements in technology like millimeter wave imaging and CT scanners, the airport security process has been slow to evolve, but that may soon be changing.
Airlines still have an interest in keeping that line moving, and they have partnered with the TSA on various initiatives, new kinds of technology that can speed the process along.
Delta, JetBlue, and American Airlines are just a few in the U.S. starting to test facial recognition for boarding and TSA checkpoints. The TSA is also working with companies on designing better screeners, so passengers don't have to remove anything from bags and can leave their shoes on.
The goal is to integrate it into the existing body scanners that are there today. So you'll be able to walk in, keep your shoes on, and you'll do the full capability detection from the shoes on up.
As of 2019, the airport security market was worth $10.78 billion and is expected to grow to over $11 billion by the end of 2027. Smiths Detection, Analogic, and Raytheon are some of the big names working in the space. The TSA just marked its 20th anniversary. We take a look at how far we've come in airport security and the ways the TSA and airlines are looking to speed up and make airport security even safer. Today, airplane hijackings are rare, but were more common back in the 1960s and 70s. This led to airport passenger screenings for weapons and firearms being federally mandated in 1973. Metal detectors were the main source of screening, but knives and razor blades were still allowed. In November 2001, in the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, when 19 hijackers used mace and knives to take control of several aircraft, President George Bush signed the Aviation and Transportation Security Act into law, which established the TSA.
Federal standards were created. The focus has been to take airport security screening far more seriously.
The TSA's job is to oversee transportation systems in the U.S. with a primary focus on aviation. It employs over 60,000 people, which includes federal air marshals, dog teams, explosive specialists, and passenger screeners.
We're significantly better prepared to thwart an attack like we saw on 9/11.
At the airport, the TSA originally screened passengers with metal detectors, adding millimeter wave full-body scanners in 2010. For bags, it uses X-ray and computed tomography, or CT, imaging machines. Various terrorist attempts over the years have shaped how we go through security.
At Seattle, Tacoma, and Washington, and here at Logan, shoes were being inspected today.
The shoe bomber, for example, is the reason we take off our shoes when we go through airport security for the most part. Liquids are taken out from some attempts for making explosives out of liquids.
A large part of it is still reactive, but we have to be both reactive and proactive, because what history has taught us is if we fail to secure a gap in security, that gap will continue to be exploited until we fill it.
The TSA is part of the Department of Homeland Security and operates on a budget set by Congress. The total budget allocated in 2019 was just over $8 billion. Part of the budget is paid by airline passengers through a September 11th security fee collected from the airlines. In 2019, these fees added up to $4.2 billion. And a fun fact, the TSA also makes a small amount from the loose change left at checkpoints. In 2019, it collected over $900,000. It uses a risk-based, intelligence-driven approach and admits that the majority of people traveling pose little to no threat to aviation. It introduced TSA PreCheck in 2013 to allow vetted passengers to bypass some of the standard screening procedures.
You pay in to join it, $85 for 5 years, you agree to share fingerprints, you agree to let the TSA do a background check on you. But in exchange, you get to go through a fast-track security. You don't have to remove your shoes. Your laptop and other electronics can remain in your carry-on luggage.
It takes a large percentage of the population that pose little to no risk, and it gets them out of the primary checkpoint lines, which take longer to go through. So now we can make the whole checkpoint process faster.
TSA says 95% of pre-check passengers wait less than 5 minutes. It even pokes fun at itself, with posters that say you should only get dressed once a day to encourage people to join pre-check. The program Clear is also an option to get to the front of the line for $179 a year, but you still need to remove your shoes and other items when screened unless you also have pre-check. In the US, the TSA screens more than 2 million passengers, 5.5 million carry-on items, and 1.4 million checked items daily. At Denver International Airport, which is one of the busiest airports in the world, if traveling on a Monday around 10 a.m., average wait times are typically between 45 to 60 minutes. The TSA is investing in other technologies in an effort to speed up the process. Automated screening lanes have been popping up throughout the US, and airlines are turning to biometric screening to improve and streamline getting through security. But even with better technology, in 2015, an internal investigation performed by Homeland Security Red Teams revealed that TSA agents failed to identify weapons and explosives 95% of the time, leading some to call the TSA simply security theater. U.S. officials said these vulnerabilities were addressed. There's also a lot going on behind the scenes to help thwart threats and attacks.
There are some areas where the FBI might know what we've deterred because they've caught those types of acts early on, but they've never been made public.
We're used to incorporating tech in our lives, paying for our groceries, ordering a car, ordering food. So the airlines are trying to play a little bit of catch up with what the expectation is of today's customer.
Delta recently announced it partnered with the TSA to streamline security. Delta SkyMiles customers with TSA PreCheck can choose to use facial recognition to drop bags, go through security, and to board the plane without taking out your ID or boarding pass.
When the lines are long, the airline managers and staff get worried. Long lines mean there's a greater likelihood that they will have to hold flights, delay flights, to make sure that the people who are stuck in line can get through security.
In 2020, the TSA started rolling out credential authentication technology, or CAT, which allows the person being screened to put their ID into a machine instead of handing it to an agent. It's linked to a database that shows pre-check and flight information, removing the need to also scan a boarding pass. It's also testing CAT with a camera that takes a photo to confirm your ID to minimize contact between officers and passengers. It says photos will not be saved.
My expectation is TSA would very much like this to become the standard. Our research shows that 81% of airline passengers in the US are willing to share their personal data with airlines they fly regularly. The challenge is that biometrics, it still scares some people. And I think that the fact that the TSA is controlling this data, not the airline, may be an issue because there are some people who actually may trust the airline with their data more than a government agency.
But what about passengers who don't want to opt into a background check and still need to take off their shoes?
Most people travel once a year, if that. That's why TSA, for all this technology, a lot of it is a TSA agent just kind of yelling like, take off your shoes and belts and empty your pockets and take your laptops out. And it's just, for all the tech that we're starting to see, a lot of it is verbal cues of reminding people just so they can keep that line moving.
Ask TSA is a Twitter account where travelers can ask what they can and can't bring through security. It also has an award-winning Instagram account showing absurd items passengers try to get through the checkpoint. The TSA has several initiatives working to enhance screening technology. The Innovation Task Force works with the industry to find and test better solutions. It also has a program called the Capability Acceptance Process, or CAP, that allows acceptable screening equipment to be donated to speed up deployment and enhance security. It also awards contracts to companies working on security solutions.
They put out a broad agency announcement which allows vendors and others to apply for grants for innovative and next generation technology. It's part of kind of the TSA that's investing in new technology to kind of streamline their process.
In the past, Analogic and Smiths Detection, among others, have been awarded contracts for CT scanners that can scan in 3D and identify explosives without the need to remove liquids or electronics. Liberty Defense was awarded $500,000 from the TSA. The company is working on a walk-through screener called the HexWave and a shoe screener.
We'll take a reflection off of the foot to see if there's anything in the shoe area that could be a potential threat. The goal is to integrate it into the existing body scanners that are there today. So you'll be able to walk in, keep your shoes on, and you'll do the full capability detection from the shoes on up.
Liberty has an exclusive license to the technology that was developed by Pacific Northwest National Laboratory and funded by the Department of Homeland Security.
It's probably about a 3-year program until we see it at airports.
The HexWave looks like a walk-through metal detector, but with capabilities similar to the body scanner.
You'll be able to detect any type of anomaly. So if it's metal, non-metallic, liquids, plastics, ghost guns, drugs, we'll be able to identify those as threats that shouldn't be on the body.
The company will go through an 18-month program coordinating with the TSA and then begin testing in an airport or a lab. The agreement is specifically for screening airport workers, but they hope it could be used for general screening as well. While there has not been a plane hijacking in the U.S. since 2001, new security concerns have emerged.
Now we worry about suicide bomber in the terminal building. We worry about active shooter in the terminal building. And a threat that's always been there has been the threat of the insider, because they effectively have the keys to the house. They effectively bypass a lot of the security that passengers have to go through.
The TSA has seen a record number of guns coming through airports, a number that has been rising annually over the past 7 years.
Since the beginning of this calendar year, since the beginning of 2021, we stopped well over 4,000 live weapons from getting on board aircraft. A little over 3,000 other classes of firearms like stun guns and firearm components.
With more guns being found than ever before and long lines before security, Liberty sees a use case for its technology even before you reach TSA.
We're looking to be at the entrance before people even come into the airport, so the land side before they go to the aviation checkpoint.
The future of airport security looks like biometrics, 3D scanners, and better threat detection, some of which are starting to be deployed today, but not everywhere. Each airport is different, so it may take some time before you experience one of these new technologies.
Every airport has its own unique airport security program. It's just differences in geography, differences in operational methods. It's way too different for a one-size-fits-all solution.
I'm not sure if we will ever get to the point where people can simply walk through without having to have their carry-on bags x-rayed. So I think you'll still have to go through some kind of a screening area.
The hope is for these systems to be implemented in the next few years. For now, choosing to pay for background checks and using your face as identification may be the fastest way through airport security.
TSA will never be perfect. It's an imperfect system. And I agree with those that say if somebody really wanted to carry out an attack on aviation, they could be successful. Our primary role in aviation security is deterrence. It's the FBI's job to go out there and catch terrorists. It's Department of Defense's job to go out there and prevent terrorism from reaching our shores. It's TSA's job, it's airport security's job to provide an adequate level of deterrence so that bad actors or terrorists or criminals decide to attack somewhere else besides aviation. And in those areas, I think we're doing a much better job of deterrence than we used to be. There's always going to be room for improvement.